So I know one thing and the other thing.
Yeah, exactly. And there's even another Nick there. So there's at least three, if not four.
There's a Nick tax, by the way.
Running late or is on time? I'm Frank, I don't know. Settling into the new culture? Must be a year now. I'm also kind of separated. It's nice having these radical genes in this application. It must change something. Well, that's hopefully good, yeah.
Grab one of them. Yeah. So I have.
You do, yeah.
It's Frank. From the Coalition of Finance. I'm a little bit late. I have a meeting.
Alright everyone, welcome. We'll start in just a few minutes, but in the meantime, you all have headsets on your chairs. You need to press the power button, the right one, and hold it for a while, and they will turn on. So if you do that, you'll be able to better hear us. So am I coming through? Brilliant.
Live online, right?
Nick, should we start with this and then when the minister comes we'll
When the minister comes, do you want to just start?
yeah, so if you could watch out for him. You know his name? Yeah.
Alright everyone, welcome. As said before, there are headsets on your chairs, so you can take those and press the white power button and you'll be able to hear us better. But I hope I'm coming through loud and clear. My name is Max Liebergreen. I'm the Danish Minister of Finance. We're honoured here today to be hosted by the Benelux CIB Pavilion and the Dutch co-chairs of the Coalition of Finance Ministers. So today you're going to hear a bit about how finance ministries across the world are working to improve their analytical capabilities to address their climate-related issues. We'll be starting off soon with opening remarks by the State Minister of Finance and Planning from Uganda, Mr. Amos Lugolubi. He'll be arriving shortly, but in the interest of time, we'll just kick off with an introduction to this project and why we're here. So, without further ado, I will then give a short presentation on a piece of work that we're doing in the Coalition of Finance Ministers for Climate Action. The coalition is a group of finance ministers and finance ministries from all across the world, counting nearly 100 finance ministries. And in the coalition we work together to share experiences and learn from each other on to address our climate-related challenges. So in the coalition, together with the US Department of the Treasury, Denmark's lead, a workstream focused on integrating climate change into economic policies and tools. And we started up a major initiative to look at modeling and analysis tools and how we can build the capability of finance ministry to address the problems they face and work together on that. So, why is this important? Well, this is a finance COP, and we have a lot of people here discussing finance. But back at home, ministries of finance all across the world have a critical role to play in creating the foundations for investments into climate action. So, ministries of finance, they have the full overview of their economies. They are the ones that often coordinate policies across government, prioritize resources, manpower and analysis. They oversee expenditure and revenue, and they often have key role as regulators of financial services and more to play, and they're often shareholders in major public institutions. So there is a strong capability or a strong potential to really drive climate action through ministries of finance, and especially because it's becoming increasingly apparent to ministries of finance across the world that there are real risks with macroeconomic consequences from I'll just try this one. Better? Good. So why do this? There is a need to avoid the risks of climate change with real consequences for the economy. There are significant growth and development benefits that can be unlocked if you do it right. And in general, getting it right on the green transition can really unlock a cleaner, secure and more economically efficient future. So there is a real disconnect here because we're not investing enough in these issues. Not enough ministries of finance are engaged in climate strategies. We have a huge amount of fossil fuel subsidies still, and carbon pricing is still not a prevalent force in the world. So, and just let me know if you can't hear me, and give me a mic if I'm not getting through. Okay. Brilliant. So. The inability to really assess these pressing climate policy issues are a major barrier for finance ministries to engage in climate change and drive the economic transition forward. These are some of the questions that we as ministries of finance are facing every day. It's very tricky to have a look at how much needs to be invested? What will be the impact of climate change on the economy? How can climate policies be used also to build green industries and secure jobs in the future? And what are the most effective combinations of policies? And what are the risks to our economy? And what barriers could slow this down? So, key message here from us today is that addressing and analyzing these questions in ministries of finance and having the tools to do that is critical for ministries of finance to really take a leadership role. Having someone who's worked both in a climate ministry and a ministry of finance, I know that for all countries, getting the ministries of finance to get on board and also help in providing the analytical foundation for policy is absolutely crucial if you want to make change. So what we're trying to do here is really to enable ministries of finance to get access to the tools that they need. So Ministries of Finance want to understand this, and what we're hearing from Ministries of Finance across the world is that they want to understand the impacts of climate change, the economic impacts of it. They want to know how to assess the costs. They want to know the financial impacts of different pathways. They want to especially look at the fiscal impacts of the policies we're trying to achieve. And on that, we're starting this work program, which is basically our attempt to gather key ministries of finance from across the world and all the major institutional partners and institutions working in the intersection between climate change and economics, to build a community between those sitting in the Ministries of Finance doing the analytics and the modeling, and those outside in research organizations, the IMF, the World Bank, the OECD, so on, the development banks, and so on and so forth, to really get a better understanding of what is needed in order to get the right tools out to those using it. So what we want to achieve is basically to have Ministries of Finance scaling up their capacity and investments in analysis and modeling. We want to have the outside stakeholders looking into this, saying sort of what can we do to provide better tools, and we want to get the sort of economic analysis in general on climate change to move forward so we can address the problems we're facing. So with that, I leave it to our trusted partners at the Grantham Research Institute and Mr. Nick Godfrey to say a bit about this piece of work and the emerging findings that we're getting out of it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mads. Thank you so much, and a good morning to all of you. Fantastic to see so many friends and colleagues. Right like that. Okay. All right. Well, look, what I'm going to do is just say a few words before we have the Minister with us, just to explain a bit more about where we're landing with the program. We have the Minister with us now. Fantastic. Welcome, Minister. Welcome, Minister. I mean, why don't we, before I start, why don't we have the Minister kick us off? And then you'll hear from me a little bit later. Minister, a warm welcome to you. Here you go. You have to hold the mic pretty close.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, dear participants, good morning to you all. This is the high-level macro modeling event empowering Ministries of Finance, economic analysis, and modeling to drive climate leadership. It is my pleasure to address you at this important event where we gather to share experiences and showcase the transformative potential of using economic modeling and analysis to assess policy options and drive climate action. Our economies face complex questions that require answers. These answers grounded in sound economic analysis. Developing tools and analytical capacity within Ministries of Finance can be a powerful lever for countries to respond effectively to the challenges of climate change at the necessary pace and scale. Around the world, Ministries of Finance are at the forefront of coordinating economic, fiscal, and financial policy, and oversee more than $30 trillion in public spending each year. At this scope, as we work to advance climate action and financing, Ministries of Finance have a key role to play, and this role should be guided by sound economic analysis. Engaging Ministries of Finance at a global level is critical for increasing the speed and ambition of climate action. The Coalition of Finance Ministers for Climate Action, which has 93 member countries, aims to bring finance ministries together to share knowledge on economic, fiscal, and financial policy dimensions of a global response to climate change. I'm happy to note that this event is one of the coalition efforts to engage Ministries of Finance. As Uganda steps into the role of co-chair of the coalition alongside the Netherlands, we are committed to supporting knowledge development and sharing, particularly around technical economic tools such as modeling and forecasting. In Uganda, we have developed natural capital accounts for major resources, including land, forestry, and wetlands, and recently completed a monetary ecosystem services account. We have also developed computable general equilibrium models to assess the impact of climate change. The social accounting matrix has been extended to include climate and environmental parameters, underpinning economic analysis with resource use and climate impact assessments. Each year, we publish the adjusted macroeconomic indicators report to reflect the country's natural capital utilization. This is just a snapshot. Much is being done to understand the economic impacts of climate change and the benefits of green economic development. The challenge is how well we are incorporating these in the planning frameworks and policy development. During this event, we will hear detailed insights from new initiatives that enhance macroeconomic analysis and modeling tools, enabling Ministries of Finance to assess the economic effects of physical climate risks and climate mitigation and adaptation measures. I'm excited to hear these presentations. I believe the presentations will help answer the questions Ministries of Finance face about the impacts of climate change, covering topics like investment needs, policy options, and funding sources that support green economic growth and strengthen resilience to climate shocks and transition risks. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you, Minister, for that very warm welcome and introduction. And we do appreciate Uganda, the new incoming co-chair of the Coalition of Finance Ministers, and look forward to your leadership. Thanks, Mads. Just going to, before we hear from our esteemed panelists, just going to say something about some of the key highlights from the work that we're seeing today. So Mads mentioned finance ministries, absolutely critical, facing really difficult, challenging questions in relation to climate policy, questions that they've not been used to addressing until recently. And what we're finding is current economic analysis and modeling tools used by finance ministries are simply often not fit for purpose to address the most pressing climate policy questions that they face. We need to see an urgent need to scale up and enhance the analytical capability of finance ministries to address these questions. We're seeing significant gaps in the ability to bridge the gap between the needs of finance ministries and the supply of good analytical tools. Yes, we need to invest in long-term model development and good analytical tools, but we also need to be able to meet the immediate needs of policymakers to address the live policy questions they're facing today. In our view, we need to give much greater added attention to filling some of the gaps in some of the analytical tools. We're not giving sufficient attention to understanding the economic impacts of physical climate risk, to understand the scale of the opportunities, to understand how technology and cost profiles are likely to continue to fall over time as deployment is scaled up, and a range of other issues. We need to see improvements in data quality. We need to see finance ministry drawing on not just quantitative modeling and analysis, but a broader range of analytical tools, including looking at ex-post case studies of impact. What's actually really worked in practice? Which policies have driven transformational change at the pace and scale needed? Just a significant point that I did want to mention is there is a very serious gap in analysis of adaptation options. This is typically absent entirely from standard macroeconomic assessments, and in our view is a significant area that needs attention. Having said that, yes, there are gaps, but there are numerous examples of finance ministries taking active leadership on this agenda. Just very briefly. There we go. just want to share some highlights from, maybe I'll ask you to, just want to share some highlights from a major survey that the Coalition of Finance Ministers has been conducting. We've had responses from nearly a third of the world's finance ministries. 59 finance ministries have responded to this survey. Thanks, Matt. And we ask questions like this: does your ministry see climate action as a core economic issue central to your mandate? And you'll see, yes, there are around a third of finance ministries in the survey that see climate action as central to economic mandate, but there are a significant number that essentially see it as the responsibility of others and other government actors. So we're not seeing enough finance ministries seeing climate action as a core part of their economic mandate. Next slide, please. We're also not seeing enough finance ministries integrate climate action within the core tools they're using to inform economic policy, budget processes, etc. So this is looking at decarbonisation, the integration within analytical tools. You can see on the left-hand side, we're seeing, this shows you which finance ministries are not integrating climate action within the various fundamental macroeconomic tools at all. And you'll see there's quite a few finance ministries that are not considering this issue, and we need to transform this pretty rapidly. If we look at adaptation and looking at the impacts of physical climate risk, the story is even more dramatic. We're seeing very few finance ministries integrating physical climate considerations within the core economic tools they're using in terms of tax and fiscal, macro budgeting, etc. Next slide, please. And finally, finance ministries, though, are yearning for expertise, for support in enhancing their capability. You'll see from the survey, it includes a number of areas where finance ministries would welcome support to build their analytical capabilities, to fill data gaps, and this information will be available soon. And finally, hope is not lost. We are seeing an extraordinary number of finance ministries with other partner organizations, the IFIs, the World Bank, the IMF, the regional development banks, key academic organizations, showing real leadership on this agenda. We've assembled a compendium of practice, 120 contributions across 60 organizations, showing real leadership from these organizations in supporting the development of tools for finance ministries. And we'll be putting all of this together and featuring this in a range of major products and reports of the Coalition of Finance Ministries throughout the course of this year and early next, so watch this space. But now I'll turn back to Mads. Thank you very much for listening to us today.
Thank you so much. So now we'll turn to the next section where we get to hear from two countries that have experience in using economic analysis to guide climate action. And I'm proud to have Mr. Juan Labat from the Uruguayan Ministry of Economy and Finance with us today. Juan will share some of the experience Uruguay have had, and then we will have colleagues from Denmark, and then a debate where we will hear more questions on how this works.
Good morning to you all. This is okay? It's working? Thanks for the invitation, and thanks to the Ministry of Finance of Denmark and to the US for moving forward and putting efforts behind the HP4 work that the coalition is doing. For me, as working in a Ministry of Finance, the work that these people and that they are doing in the HP4, it's very, very important. Let me say before I go to my, it's not a presentation, to what I want to share, that I'm specialized in climate and environment. I work in the Ministry of Finance, but I'm specialist and my background is in climate and environment, so I'm not, my expertise in macro modeling, it's almost zero, so I won't answer questions about that, but I can share how I feel and how I think they are useful, the macroeconomic tools, the macroeconomic modeling tools to mainstream climate and the environment in economic policies. And I want to give, I think, 2 or 3 main messages that are the following. First, I think we all agree that macroeconomic modeling tools are fundamental for Ministry of Finance to mainstream climate and environment. We need them. I think we all agree. But another main message is that they are quite time, data, and resource consuming. So we need support to implement and to use these macroeconomic modeling tools. And also, in Ministry of Finance, we also need other types of tools, more practical, less time consuming or resource consuming tools in order to take certain decisions that for the people who works in the Ministry of Finance, when a minister asks you for something, you don't have 6 months to answer the question and to run the model. You have 1 week if you have luck. So we need other kind of tools. And I'm going to briefly, I want to share with you what we have done in the Ministry of Finance in Uruguay, that in certain way, it's why I why I put here these main messages. First, giving you let's say the big picture. In Uruguay, the Ministry of Finance has done in the last years some very important efforts in order to mainstream climate and environment in economic policy. Using economic incentives, we achieve to have more than 90% of our electric generation comes from renewable energy. I think we ranked between the 5 top countries that has a renewable electric matrix, and that was done fundamentally or crucially because we use economic incentives. In 2022, we put a CO2 tax to gasolines that it's among the highest in the world. It's very big, it's very high, the tax. It doesn't cover a lot of GHG emissions, but that's because, and I want to focus on this, that's because the emission structure of Uruguay, like 70%, it's in methane, in food production, and we cover with this tax the rest, the CO2 emission, with a tax in gasoline. Third, another big economic policy that embeds that a mainstream climate and environment. We use our NDC indicators and targets, and we put them in a sustainability-linked bond, sovereign sustainability-linked bond that we issued in October 2022. It was the first bond worldwide that has the possibility of a step down in the interest rate if we achieve our NDC targets. So it's the first time that we put the idea of a reward for accomplishing Paris Agreement targets. That was very important for us. It makes all government, a whole of the government effort to focus in NDC commitments. In certain way, we made our NDC financially binding for us. That was very important. And now we are working in 2 more things. We are creating a fund, a climate and nature fund, in order to these potential rewards to send it to climate action in the ground. And also we are trying to take this idea of positive economic incentives to the trade arena in order to access to have the possibility to access to preferential market access if you achieve your NDC agreements. Now, going specific to our efforts in macroeconomic modeling, I want to share briefly, because as I said, I'm not an expert in macroeconomics. I want to share 4 things that we have done. In the last 2 or 3 years in Uruguay, we applied 4 macroeconomic models. 2 of them we focus in transition risks, in the policies, in the efforts that we have to do in order to reduce our GHG emissions. And 2 of them, we focus them in physical risk, to understand how climate change is affecting us. And as you may know, as a developing country, for us it's very important to understand, and Nick mentioned it, to understand how climate change is affecting us, where it's affecting us, and which policies we can do in order to increase our adaptation capabilities. For applying those 4 models in the last 2 or 3 years, we need a lot of external support. In all models, people of the Ministry of Finance was involved. We worked, but we need external support. We have the support of the World Bank, of the IMF, of universities, of the Economic Commission for Latin America, Latin American Economic Commission. So the external support was crucial to apply this. And what we found, briefly, is the following. When we apply let's say the macro models to the transition risk, what we found is that GDP increases more than in a how to say from a tendency. We have a GDP growth like a tendency, and using the macroeconomic modeling and putting there the policies that we want to apply and we need to apply and we compromise in our NDCs, we found that the GDP will grow more than our tendency. But there are some years that it's down our GDP tendency. So the question is who and how we can accept this GDP growth that in the first years perhaps is lower than what we expected, but in the long run or in the medium run it's going to be higher. So there we have a very important question, and it's, let's say, a distributional question. Who is going to take care, to take the responsibilities for these efforts that we have to implement in the short run, for having in the middle and in the long run a higher GDP. That's, let's say, the main result that we have when applying macroeconomic models with to transition risk and to different climate policies. And I think, sorry, and again, as I'm not a specialist, as a specialist in macromodeling, for me it was very interesting that looking at 2 or 3 models that test this, although the models were quite different, they all have the similar results. So for me that was crucial, that I can put different models that have different particularities, and the people who knows about macro modeling, probably they can criticize all of them, but all of them, they are giving similar results, or the results are in the same line, in the same sign. So for me that was crucial. And then when applying these macroeconomic models to physical risk, what we found that we already know it, but I think it was important because we have the size. It's working? Okay. It's which is our most important risk, and we found that it's droughts. That we know it. Droughts in Uruguay,
Yes, please.
an agricultural country, of course, it's very important. The shocks to macroeconomic variables are very important and has been very important, and our projection is that it's going to keep in that way. And we found that it's not only in the agricultural sector, but also in the hydroelectric sector. And also, recently, we found that it's also in our, drinkable water sector. That has a very important impact. And with this model, we can measure and put a number, put a size, approximately, to this risk. That I think it was very important. And now, to close, and I won't take more time of you. I want to return to the main messages. Ministry of Finance, that we are working in order to mainstream climate and environment to our economic policies. We need to understand what these macroeconomic models say. That's fundamental, that's crucial. It's a lot of efforts. We need external support for doing that. And also we need to have more practical tools that give us more power to answer important questions for our authorities. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Juan. That's really inspiring to hear, and it's a huge, impressive effort Uruguay has undertaken. I'll now turn to Denmark, and it is my colleague Jeppe Leo Rasmussen, who's the one who's actually been using our macroeconomic modeling in practice. So, Jeppe, come on up here, and let's hear about how it works in practice.
Thank you so much, Mads. In Denmark, we have very ambitious targets. Both the Danish Climate Act with 70% greenhouse gas target in 2030, but also from the EU regulation. So these targets really put an emphasis on how we need to think the economic analysis and meeting the climate targets, think this together in the Ministry of Finance. In 2022, the first report on how to do a green tax reform came from an expert group, and shortly after the tax on the industry was made, and it starts here in 2025. But all the way through, the elephant in the room has been how to tax the greenhouse gases from the agriculture sector. So this is just to give you an overview of the emissions from the agriculture sector in Denmark, where especially the livestock is a very big part of the emitters, and especially the dairy cattle. So the second part of the expert group has been to finding out how to find climate measures for the agriculture sector. And I served as part of the secretariat, providing analysis and recommendations on how to do a greenhouse gas tax for the agriculture sector. And this was one of the first, is very just a descriptive analysis on how what the greenhouse gas taxes are for the agriculture sector in Denmark compared to the industry. And it's not surprised that the greenhouse gas emissions are a big part of the emissions in Denmark, since we are one of the most cultivated countries in the world.
Ja, der buffert. Ah, jetzt alle. 1, 2, 1, 2, check, check, check. Test, test. Microphone, check. 1, 2. Check, check. 1, 2, 1, 2. Test, test. 1, 2, 1, 2. Test, test. Check, check. Eins, zwei, he, he. Check, check. 1, 2, test, test. 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, test, 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 test. Lass den ruhig mal so, den Fader, wie er ist.